Welcome to Ab Immemorabile, from Time Beyond Memory. I'm Drake.
And I'm Holly. Where ancient wisdom meets modern minds.
Brought to you by the most ancient anamnetic order of Trikala for seekers everywhere. Whether you're walking with us or simply curious about the path.
Each episode, we explore the hidden patterns that connect philosophy, consciousness, and human transformation.
Drawing from traditions east and west, old and new, familiar and forgotten.
Because some truths exist outside of time, waiting to be remembered, not learned.
On this episode, we're descending into the most famous philosophical image ever created, Plato's cave, only to discover that we never left it. The shadows on the wall aren't ancient history. They're your Instagram feed, your news bubble, and every assumption you've never questioned.
Drake, I rewatched The Matrix this week, and I couldn't stop thinking the Wachowskis didn't invent that story. They just updated Plato's cave for the digital age.
What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world built to keep us under control. Morpheus could have been describing Plato's cave.
Let's paint the picture for those who might not know it. Book 7 of the Republic. Socrates asks us to imagine prisoners chained in a cave since childhood.
They're facing a wall, can't turn their heads. Behind them is a fire. And between the fire and the prisoners, people carry objects that cast shadows on the wall.
The prisoners have never seen anything but these shadows. To them, the shadows are reality. They even have competitions about who can best predict which shadow will appear next.
They've gamified their prison. They're shadow experts, shadow influencers, shadow scholars. Their entire culture is built around shadows they think are real.
Then Plato asks, what if one prisoner is freed? They turn around, see the fire. It's painful. Their eyes hurt. They see the actual objects causing the shadows.
And their first instinct? They want to go back. The shadows were comfortable. This new reality is too bright, too overwhelming.
But if they're dragged further, out of the cave entirely, they see the sun itself, the source of all light and truth. After their eyes adjust, they understand everything they thought was real was just shadows of shadows.
And here's what Plato says happens next. This freed prisoner feels compelled to return, not from cruelty, but from compassion. They want to free their fellow prisoners.
But when they return, their eyes have to readjust to darkness. They fumble, can't see the shadows clearly anymore. The other prisoners mock them. See? Going up there ruined their vision. It's dangerous to leave.
And Socrates makes it even darker. He says the prisoners would kill anyone who tried to drag them out. They'd rather murder than face the possibility that their whole reality is false.
Which is exactly what Athens did to Socrates himself. He was executed for trying to drag people out of their caves.
Now, here's the kicker. That was 2,400 years ago. But tell me, we're not in the same cave, just with better special effects.
Our shadows dance on screens instead of walls. We're not chained by metal, but by algorithms designed to keep us scrolling, watching, consuming.
We think we're so sophisticated, but we're still watching shadows and mistaking them for reality. Your social media feed isn't your friends' lives. It's shadows of their lives, curated and filtered.
The news isn't events, it's shadows of events selected and framed to keep you watching. Even worse, it's often shadows of shadows. Reports about something that might have happened.
Chomsky called it manufacturing consent. The shadows aren't random. They're deliberately crafted to make us think and behave certain ways.
The cave has puppet masters, and they know exactly which shadows will keep us entranced.
And here's what's brilliant about Plato's setup. The fire tenders, the ones carrying objects to cast shadows, they're in the cave too. They might not even know there's a world outside.
So we have prisoners watching shadows, guards creating shadows, and possibly no one who's actually seen the sun. It's the blind leading the blind, but everyone thinks they're sighted.
That's our media landscape perfectly. Journalists reporting on tweets, politicians responding to polls, everyone reacting to reactions. It's shadows all the way down.
And we measure success by shadow metrics. How many views, likes, shares. We're literally competing over who's best at shadow watching, just like Plato's prisoners.
But here's what's even more insidious about our modern cave. We think we're free. The prisoners in Plato's cave knew they were chained. We carry our chains in our pockets and call them smartphones.
We volunteer for the cave. We pay monthly subscriptions to shadow providers. We get anxiety when we're disconnected from the shadow stream.
And just like in Plato's cave, we compete over shadow knowledge. Who has the most followers? Who got the most likes? Who's best at predicting what will trend?
We've gamified our prison so thoroughly that leaving it feels like losing, not liberation.
The Order teaches something about this. The difference between the realm of images and the realm of forms. Most people live their entire lives in the image realm, never suspecting there's anything more real.
Social media is pure image realm. It's representations of representations. A photo of a meal that was arranged for the photo, posted for likes, viewed through filters.
How many degrees of separation from reality is that? It's not even shadows anymore. It's shadows of shadows of shadows.
And each platform creates its own cave. Twitter cave has different shadows than Instagram cave or TikTok cave. People actually have different personalities in different caves.
They code switch between shadow worlds, but never question whether any of them are real. They're so busy managing their various shadow selves that they never ask who's casting these personas.
I've watched friends spend hours crafting the perfect post, agonizing over which shadow version of themselves to project. The effort we put into shadow maintenance is staggering.
Meanwhile, actual life, the sunlit world, passes by unnoticed. People document experiences instead of having them. They're so busy creating shadows that they miss the reality.
Let's talk about the escape, though. In Plato's Allegory, the freed prisoner doesn't free themselves. They're released by some unnamed force.
Which raises the question, what frees us from our modern cave? What makes us turn around and see the fire behind the shadows?
Sometimes it's crisis. Your life falls apart and suddenly the shadows don't matter anymore. You're forced to confront something real: loss, illness, failure.
Sometimes it's meditation or psychedelics. You have an experience of consciousness beyond the thought stream, and you realize thoughts are just shadows too.
Sometimes it's travel, especially to radically different cultures. You see people living completely different lives and realize your reality is just one possible arrangement.
But here's the thing. Just like in Plato's story, the first reaction is usually to go back. Reality is too bright, too intense. The shadows were comfortable.
I see this with people who have profound spiritual experiences. They touch something real, but then they run back to their routines, their distractions, their familiar shadows.
Because leaving the cave isn't just about seeing differently, it's about being different. Your whole identity was built around shadow knowledge. Who are you without it?
There's this moment in everyone's awakening, I've seen it repeatedly, where they realize that waking up means losing who they thought they were. And that's terrifying.
You're not just leaving shadows behind, you're leaving your shadow self behind. The ego that was constructed entirely from cave materials has to die.
And that feels like actual death. No wonder people resist. No wonder they'd rather kill the messenger than receive the message.
It's easier to shoot the person pointing at the exit than to walk through it yourself.
And then there's the loneliness in Plato's Allegory. When the freed prisoner returns to tell others about the sun, they think he's mad.
Worse, they threaten to kill anyone who tries to free them. Sound familiar? This is exactly what happened to Socrates.
It happens to whistleblowers today. People who reveal the mechanisms behind the shadows. Snowden, Assange, Manning. We don't kill them usually, but we certainly try to silence them.
Because they're not just challenging beliefs, they're threatening an entire way of life. If the shadows aren't real, then what have we been doing with our lives?
There's this brilliant dialogue in the Allegory where Plato imagines the prisoners discussing the freed one. They say his eyes were ruined by going up. They use his difficulty seeing shadows as proof that leaving the cave is dangerous.
Of course, he can't see shadows well anymore. He's seen the sun. But to the prisoners, being good at shadow watching is intelligence itself.
This is exactly what happens when someone unplugs from social media or news cycles. People say, "You're uninformed. You don't know what's happening."
But what's really happening? The shadows on the wall, or the reality outside the cave?
I had a friend who quit all social media, stopped watching news, started spending time in nature, meditating, reading philosophy. People genuinely worried about her mental health.
Because from inside the cave, leaving looks like madness. Choosing reality over shadows seems like choosing isolation over connection.
But she told me something beautiful. She said, I'm not less connected, I'm more connected. I just stopped mistaking notifications for relationships.
That's the difference between shadow connection and real connection. One feeds on your attention, the other feeds your soul. Let's go deeper. What if Plato's cave is fractal? Caves within caves, each thinking its escape to reality.
Oh, that's disturbing. You leave social media, think you're free, but you're just in a bigger cave. Maybe the cave of language or culture, or human perception itself.
This is where simulation hypothesis comes in. What if our entire universe is a cave? What if what we call physical reality is just shadows in some higher dimensional space?
Elon Musk famously said, the odds we're living in base reality are billions to one. We could be shadows in someone else's computer.
But even that assumes the next level up is real. What if it's caves all the way up? Or circles? What if you climb high enough and end up back in the first cave?
Now you're making my brain hurt.
That's the feeling of your mental chains loosening. But seriously, this infinite regress of caves might be missing Plato's point. He's not just describing levels of reality, he's describing levels of knowing.
The divided line from the Republic, images, physical objects, mathematical forms, and finally the good itself, the sun in the allegory.
Each level isn't just more real, it's more knowable. You can have opinions about shadows, beliefs about objects, knowledge about forms, and finally direct apprehension of the good.
So it's not about finding the real cave, but about developing higher ways of knowing, moving from opinion to understanding to wisdom.
And maybe that's more practical than it sounds. You can't escape physical reality, but you can change how you relate to it.
Instead of being hypnotized by shadows, you can recognize them as shadows while still living among them.
Like being in the world, but not of it. You still use money, technology, language, all the shadows, but you don't mistake them for ultimate reality.
That's what the sages do. They return to the cave, not because they have to, but because they can navigate it without being trapped by it.
They play the shadow games when necessary, but never forget their games.
But here's my question. If we're all in caves, how do we know which direction is out? How do you distinguish between climbing toward the sun and just entering a different cave?
Maybe by the quality of light. Shadows are always derivative. They depend on something else. Each level toward reality is more self-luminous, more self-evident.
Like the difference between believing something because you were told versus knowing it from direct experience.
Exactly. You can doubt shadows, doubt objects, even doubt concepts. But can you doubt the awareness that's doing the doubting?
That's very Descartes, but also very Buddhist. The one thing you can't doubt is consciousness itself.
Maybe that's the sun in Plato's Allegory, not a thing to be known, but the knowing itself, the light by which everything else is seen.
Which would mean escaping the cave isn't about going somewhere else. It's about recognizing what you already are. You're not the prisoner watching shadows. You're the light that makes seeing possible.
That completely reframes the allegory. The journey out isn't spatial, but ontological. You don't move, you remember.
Remember what?
That you were never actually chained. The chains were shadows too. You were always free. You just forgot.
That's anamnesis. Plato's theory that learning is actually remembering. We don't acquire knowledge, we recover it.
The soul knows the truth but forgets it at birth. Education is just helping the soul remember what it already knows.
So every prisoner already knows about the sun, they've just been hypnotized into forgetting.
Which means the philosopher's job isn't to inform, but to remind. Not to teach, but to awaken. Pause. Let's bring this back to practical reality. If we're in a cave, multiple caves, what do we do?
First, recognize the shadows as shadows. Your newsfeed isn't reality. Your thoughts about reality aren't reality. Even your sensory experience is filtered, interpreted, constructed.
Question your shadow knowledge. What do you know that's actually just repeated opinion? What beliefs have you never examined?
And look for the fire. What's casting these shadows? Who benefits from you believing they're real? What forces shape what you see and how you see it?
Algorithms, media companies, governments, cultures, they're all fire tenders, shadow casters.
But also your own mind, your biases, traumas, desires. They're internal shadow makers, projecting meanings onto neutral events.
The order teaches that the first cave to escape is your own psychology. Before you can see external reality clearly, you have to see through your own mental shadows.
That's why know thyself was inscribed at Delphi. Self-knowledge is the beginning of the journey out.
You can't escape a prison you don't know you're in. You can't remove chains you don't feel.
So, the first step is just noticing. Notice when you're reacting to shadows. Notice when you're creating shadows. Notice when you're mistaking shadows for reality.
And here's something crucial. Don't judge yourself for being in the cave. Everyone's in some cave or another. Judgment just creates more shadows.
Instead, cultivate curiosity. That's interesting. I'm treating this opinion as fact. I wonder what's behind it.
Turn toward the light incrementally. You don't have to stare at the sun immediately. Just face a slightly brighter direction.
There's something else about the allegory that haunts me. The philosopher's return. After seeing the sun, Plato says the philosopher must go back down to help free others.
Even though they'll be mocked, possibly killed, even though they'd rather stay in the sunlight, duty demands they return.
It's not enough to achieve personal liberation. True philosophy requires trying to liberate others, even when they resist.
This is the bodhisattva vow in Buddhism, to not enter nirvana until all beings are free. Same archetypal pattern.
But how do you free people who love their chains? How do you show sun to those who insist shadows are all there is?
Maybe you don't drag them out. Maybe you become a different kind of shadow on their wall, one that points beyond itself.
Like art that awakens rather than entertains. Questions that disturb rather than confirm. Stories that make the familiar strange.
The Matrix itself is that kind of shadow. It uses entertainment, a shadow medium, to make people question their reality.
Inception too. Is this a dream? Becomes, is this reality? The shadow asks about shadows.
Great teachers have always done this. They use the language of the cave to point beyond the cave.
Jesus spoke in parables, earthly stories with heavenly meanings. Buddha used everyday examples to explain transcendent truths.
They met people where they were in their familiar shadows, then gradually turned them toward the light.
It's like using a mirror to show someone the sun. They can't look directly at it, but they can see its reflection.
And maybe that's enough. Maybe you don't need to drag anyone anywhere. Just be a mirror that reflects a different light.
You know what's wild? We're doing it right now. This conversation is shadows, sound waves, digital signals, interpreted by brains.
But we're using shadows to point beyond shadows. We're in the cave, talking about the sun.
Maybe that's all philosophy has ever been. Prisoners trying to remember light, using shadows to sketch what can't be shown.
And maybe some prisoner listening will hear something that makes them turn around. Not because we freed them, but because something in them remembers.
Remembers what?
That they've seen the sun before. That's what anamnesis means. We're not learning about reality, we're remembering it. We've all been outside the cave, we've just forgotten.
So, the cave isn't our prison. Forgetting is our prison. And philosophy is the art of remembering what we've always known.
Which means everyone can escape. Not through special knowledge or secret techniques, but through remembering their own deepest knowing.
The order talks about this, how certain experiences trigger remembering. Sometimes a phrase, an image, a moment of beauty breaks through and you remember, oh yes, this is what's real.
And then you forget again. But each remembering makes the next one easier. You start recognizing the difference between shadows and light.
It's like developing a sense for authenticity. You can feel when something's real versus when it's performance, projection, shadow play.
And once you develop that sense, you can't unknow it. You might still engage with shadows, but you never quite believe in them the same way. Here's what strikes me most about our modern cave. It's not passive anymore. It's interactive. We're not just watching shadows, we're creating them.
Every post, every share, every click, we're shadow casting for others while watching the shadows they cast for us.
We're prisoners and guards simultaneously. We maintain our own imprisonment and others.
It's like a prison where the inmates are also the wardens, but nobody remembers that's what's happening.
Which makes escape both easier and harder. Easier because the chains are self-imposed. Harder because we're invested in maintaining them.
We have shadow careers, shadow relationships, shadow identities. Our whole lives are built inside the cave. Leaving means losing everything we've worked for.
No wonder the red pill is such a difficult choice. You're not just choosing truth over illusion, you're choosing to invalidate your entire life up to that point.
But here's the paradox. You can't really leave the cave while hating it. That's just another form of being chained to it.
You have to love the cave enough to let it go. Appreciate the shadows for what they taught you, then turn toward the light.
Like a butterfly has to love the cocoon that made its transformation possible, even as it breaks free.
The cave isn't the enemy, it's the womb. We're meant to outgrow it, not destroy it.
Others will need it after us. The cave serves its purpose, it's just not meant to be permanent.
Maybe that's why the philosopher returns, not just from duty, but from gratitude. The cave made their journey possible. There's another layer to think about. What if we need the cave? What if shadows serve an essential function?
Like how we need sleep, dreams, imagination? Not everything has to be bright, sharp solar consciousness.
The ancient Greeks knew this. Apollo was the sun god, but they also honored Dionysus, the god of shadows, intoxication, dissolution.
Too much sun and you go blind. Too much reality and you go mad. Maybe shadows protect us from truth we're not ready for.
That's why the journey out is gradual. Your eyes have to adjust. Your being has to transform to handle more light.
The order teaches something similar. That revelation without preparation is destruction. You need to build the vessel before you pour in the light.
So maybe our shadow world isn't just a prison, but also a nursery. A place where consciousness develops until it's strong enough for reality.
That's more compassionate than Plato's version. The cave isn't just ignorance, it's a developmental stage.
Like how children need fairy tales before facts, imagination before information, play before work.
And maybe we cycle between cave and sun, shadows and light, throughout our lives. It's not a one-way journey, but a rhythm.
Sometimes you need to return to the shadows to integrate what you've seen in the light.
Sometimes the shadows show you things the sun can't reveal, like how you need darkness to see stars.
So where does this leave us? If everything might be shadows, how do we live?
Maybe with what the Buddhists call don't know mind. Hold everything lightly, engage fully, but don't mistake the map for the territory.
Use the shadows. We have to live in the world. But remember, they're shadows. Don't let them use you.
And keep turning toward whatever seems most real, most luminous, most alive. Even if you can't see the sun, you can always face toward greater light.
And when you find a fellow prisoner who's also turning, compare notes. Maybe together you can triangulate toward truth.
That's what philosophy is. Prisoners helping each other remember the sun.
Not claiming to have escaped, but admitting we're all escaping. Present tense, continuous action.
Because maybe the cave isn't a place but a process. And escape isn't an achievement but a practice.
Every moment, choosing reality over representation, presence over projection, direct experience over received opinion.
The cave you're already in, but also the sun you already are.
And that might be Plato's deepest teaching. Not that we need to escape to find the light, but that we are the light, playing at being prisoners.
The ultimate plot twist, the prisoners, the shadows, the fire, the sun, all one consciousness, experiencing itself from different angles.
So the journey out is really a journey in. And the cave we're escaping is the illusion of separation itself.
Heavy thoughts for shadow beings.
Or light thoughts for light beings playing with shadows.
Either way, it's been illuminating.
Literally and figuratively. Thank you for joining us for this exploration.
Ab immemorabili, from time beyond memory.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep growing.
And remember, the wisdom you seek has always been within you.
You're not learning it.
You're remembering it.